everybody have their prayer book and have their powerful prayer of Kuntuzangpo.
Yes.
Okay.
You could come in and say hello.
Lance, I got the pictures. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good.
Oh, pana na shavari.
Parnashavari.
Pana shavari.
Parnashavari.
Pana shavari. Okay.
Yeah. So, with the pandemic being what it is, I think if everybody can do practice for Parnashavari, regularly, will really strengthen resolve and help people and visualize people as Parnashavari and receiving, protection is really important because we need all the help we can get right now. The worst is yet to come.
Yeah, that's what they say.
They're talking about astronomical numbers and it's really bad. And they said that the Thanksgiving spike hasn't even come yet.
Nope. It's lag. It's a lag, 10-day lag.
Yeah, so it's going to be.
That's going to be nasty.
It's serious.
Have you heard
really,
the
Coney
teachings?
Island is suing the city of New York for shutting down their bars.
You say they're criticizing New
They're
York?
suing them.
Huh?
The Coney Island is suing the city of New York maybe the state of New York. I can't remember for making them shut down. They had a big mob scene at the bar, and they sent the sheriff's deputies out there, and it's just like people don't want to get it, so they're going to die their way out of it, I guess. It's really sad to see because a lot of them are young kids that are out there, and it's just another party to them, it seems like, and it's you just can't seem to get to them until it's too late, and our medical system is so burdened.
You wonder, or at least I wonder, if especially the younger people, if they've really become somewhat blind to suffering. I mean, they had to have seen it in the past few months. They've had to seen, and know the numbers and hear the sirens and know people that have gone. But
well, Lance addressed it in a session some time ago. You can correct me, Lance, but basically what I think you were saying is we can't agree on what the facts are for various reasons. And people were saying that the facts aren't the facts. And just like they're doing down in Georgia and they're doing up in New York, they're saying, it's a hoax, and that even the death count is a hoax. And what do? That you look at the pictures of these not first responder, well, the people in the hospital, where it's breaking. The system is breaking. And so I think that we're in for a dreadful year unless we can find a way to.
Well, I wonder if somebody's going to do a demographic based on their political persuasions and see how many Trump supporters are dying versus those who are not Trump supporters, and see how many, of those people are the ones that are getting sick and passing away, particularly in all the red states.
Well, I think there's a lot to that, but you also have people like first responders and medical providers who may or may not have voted for Trump. I mean, I have my own opinions on whether, but if they can take them out of that
equation, if they can factor them out of the equation and just, the everyday people, and be able to analyze that, I think that would be very interesting reveal.
Would for you and I maybe, but for people who are indifferent to the facts or don't think
maybe that would help wake them up. That's my point, that they would see that they're the ones that are dying.
I don't know. Weren't you saying, it's hard to quote you when I can't remember. It's like being out of reality. that you are
have
determined to have your own reality and that you're not going to be dissuaded um, by any database that anybody presents, even if there's someone with whom you would normally agree. There are people out there who say, well, now you've become one of them. Well, look what the governor of Maryland's having to put up with.
There's a term for this, or I should say a quote that I've long loved that applies here. And it goes like this. I don't even know where it came from, but here's the quote. Those who yearn to sleep cannot be awakened. Those who yearn to sleep cannot be awakened.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that made up their mind about the whole thing and they don't care about numbers or statistics.
All right, well, let's get on to Kuntuzangpo and here's some good news and shine some light on desperation and confusion. So let's do short opening prayers by doing the short refuge prayer and the four immeasurables, and then we'll get into the Kuntuzangpo prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chodam la, Shangju bardu dagni kapsuchi, dagi jinsoki pe sonamgi, drola penchir sange juparsho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesem chantam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dempar jorchi. Dugnal dang dunal gi gudang drawar jorchi. Dugnal me pe dewa dang midra war jorchi. Ne ring jak dang ni dang dra wei tang namla ne pa jorchi. Okay, thank you. So we'll read we'll each take a page and continue till we finish this. We'll each take a page and recite the whole prayer. We'll start with Curtis tonight on page 1. And then Curtis, then Adrian, and Michael, and Tom, then myself, and then Gary. And then we'll repeat with Curtis, okay?
I'm going to have to be out of the rotation because I don't have material with me.
Oh,
I'm in Portsmouth just with my phone.
okay. All right, well then we'll start with Adrian, then Michael, Tom, Lance, and Gary. All right, Adrian, whenever you're ready.
The powerful prayer of aspiration from the Tantra of the Great Perfection that reveals the all-penetrating wisdom mind of Samantabhadra. Ho, all that appears and exists, samsara and nirvana, has one ground, two paths, and two forms of fruition, the magical displays of awareness and unawareness. Through this, Samantabhadра's prayer of aspiration, may all attain complete and perfect awakening within the palace of Dharmadatta, the absolute sphere. The basis of everything is uncompounded, a self-originating expanse, vast and inexpressible.
Michael? Your microphone's off. Are you, you lost something?
No, I'm on my iPad, so I'm not at the page yet. So,
We're on page 2 of the Kuntuzangpo prayer.
yeah, I've got to locate it. Doesn't want to do that.
You want me to continue, Michael, until you find that?
Please do. I don't think it wants to open on me. Thank you.
Okay. Beyond the names samsara and nirvana, this itself, when seen, is awakening. But in their ignorance, beings wander in samsara. May all sentient beings throughout the three realms realize the meaning of the ineffable ground. I, Samantabhadra, know the ground's reality, which is without cause or condition. It originates by itself within this very ground, is unspoiled by perspective, supposition, or denial, and unobscured by the darkness of unmindful delusion. That which is self-manifest is thus without fault.
Ready, Michael?
Yeah. Okay.
Page 3.
When abiding in genuine intrinsic awareness, there is no fear, even at the triple world's demise, nor is there attachment to the five sensory delights. In self-originating awareness free of concepts, there is neither solid form nor the five poisons. The unobstructed clarity of awareness is one in essence and fivefold in wisdom. Through the ripening of the five wisdoms, to the five original Buddha's families arise, and through wisdom's further expansion, the 42 peaceful Buddhas emerge.
With the upsurge of fivefold wisdom's power, the 60 blood-drinking Harukas appeared. Thus, ground awareness has never known delusion. I am the primordial Buddha, and therefore, through this, my prayer of aspiration, may beings of samsara, three realm, recognize self-originating awareness, so that vast wisdom may be perfected. Continuously my emanation will appear, and there are many billions beyond imagining, manifest in varied ways according to need.
Through this, my compassionate aspiration, may all the beings of samsara's three realms escape their plight among the six classes. From the very first, since awareness does not dawn for the deluded beings within the ground, they are entirely mindless and confused. This itself is unawareness, delusion's cause. And then, as if out of a sudden daze, there is anxiety and mental disquiet, from which notions of self and other and enmity appear, as the habitual tendency is then reinforced.
Samsara unfolds in its regular progression. Thus, mind's afflictions, the 5 poisons, develop, and actions born of these 5 poisons never end. Therefore, since the basis for the being's delusion is a lack of mindfulness, an absence of awareness, through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all beings recognize their own awareness. The unawareness that is co-emergent is a state of mindlessness, distraction. The unawareness that designates as dualistic clinging to self and other.
Adrian?
This too, co-emergent and designated unawareness, provide the basis for the delusion of all being. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may the dark and murky gloom of mindlessness among all sentient beings in samsara be dispelled. May their dualistic perceptions be purified, and may they recognize their very own awareness. A mind of dualistic clinging is one of doubt. From subtle attachment, once it has arisen, habitual tendencies gradually gain strength. Food, wealth, clothing, home, and companions.
The pleasures of the 5 senses, or dear relations, whatever is attractive brings the torment of desire. These are the delusions of the world. Actions based on dualistic clinging are unending. When the fruits of attachment come to ripen, they bring birth as a preta tormented by desire. How wretched are the pains of hunger and thirst. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may beings beset by craving and attachment neither cast aside the torment of desire, nor pursue the craving of attachment.
But by allowing the mind to relax just as it is, may they capture the natural state of awareness and gain the wisdom of perfect discernment. Through the subtle stirring of anxiety and fear towards the appearance of external objects, habitual tendencies of aversions are reinforced, opening the way to enmity, injury, and slaughter. When the fruits of aggression come to ripen, how harrowing will be the boiling and burning of hell. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all the sentient beings of the 6 realms,
Whenever they are beset by intense aggression, neither reject nor indulge it, but relax therein, capture the natural state of their own awareness, and gain the wisdom of lucid clarity. When the mind grows conceited, it brings thoughts of rivalry and disdain, and the arising of intense pride leads to the suffering of quarrels and disputes. When the fruits of such karma come to ripen, they bring birth as a deva, subject to passage and fall. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha,
May all sentient beings in whom conceit is born relax their minds there and then, capture the natural state of their own awareness, and realize the true meaning of equality. Habitual tendencies of intense dualistic clinging bring about the pain of self-flattery and contempt, and by inflaming conflict, dispute, and competition, lead to birth in the Ajra realm of slaughter and mutilation, which in turn results in descent to the domains of hell. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may those in whom rivalry and antagonism take root,
Adrian.
Not regard them as enemies, but relax there and then, capture the natural state of their own awareness, and gain the wisdom of unimpeded activity. mindlessness, indifference, distraction, dullness, drowsiness, oblivion, insensibility, laziness, and stupidity result in helpless animal wandering. Now, through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may the light of clear cognizance arise in those plunged into stupidity's gloom, and may they gain wisdom free of thought.
All sentient beings throughout the three realms are equal to me, the Buddha, in the ground of all. Yet for them it is but a base of mindless delusion. And now they engage in meaningless pursuits, with sixfold karma as if deceived by a dream. Yet I am the primordial Buddha, guide to the 6 classes through my emanations. Through this, Samantabhadra's prayer of aspiration, may all sentient beings without exception awaken within the Dharmadhatu, the absolute sphere.
Aho, henceforth, whenever a powerful yogi with naturally clear, undiluted awareness recite this powerful aspiration, all sentient beings who hear it will awaken within the course of 3 lives. When Rahu seizes the sun or moon, whenever the earth rumbles or quakes, at the solstice of close of the year, visualize yourself as Samantabhadra and chant this aloud so that all may hear.
Then all the beings of the 3 realms will, through the yogi's prayer of aspiration, gradually be freed from their suffering and ultimately awaken as a Buddha. Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments about any of this so far?
I like it more every time we read it.
Okay.
Oh,
That's true.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't have page numbers as I printed it. What page number does it start? I'm gonna.
We start on page 1, the powerful prayer of aspiration.
Okay.
Okay, so just at the beginning, just as a review for what we've talked about. So here we're establishing phenomenal nature, the view of phenomenal nature with samsara and nirvana, and that there is a ground, 2 paths, and 2 forms of fruition. So we've talked about that. We've talked about awareness and unawareness. And through that, by aspiring to be Samantabhadra, will we have complete and perfect awakening within the palace of the Dharmadhatu, the absolute sphere. So this natural basis is uncorrupted, uncompounded, inexpressible, and beyond the names of samsara and nirvana, all dualism. And whatever is conceptualized is able to be recognized. Whatever conceptualized are the 3 spheres, the 3 realms, the below, apparent or above, the kama dhatu, the rupa dhatu, or the arupa dhatu levels, all inexpressible. And then Samantabhadra knows the ground reality, the ground, the path, and the fruition. And is unspoiled by perspective, supposition, or denial, and unobscured by darkness of unmindful delusion, which is self-manifest, which means it is the essence, is thus without fault. When abiding in genuine intrinsic awareness is the rigpa, the pristine cognition. There is no fear, even at the 3 world's demise. That's the kama, rupa, and arupa dhatu. And then the sensory delights that as we see things, as we recognize things through our senses, and we are seeing things or being blocked by things with the 5 poisons, the unobstructed clarity of awareness, Rigpa, pristine cognition, in one essence and 5-fold wisdom. So the 5 wisdoms, the all-pervading wisdom, the mirror-like wisdom, the wisdom of equanimity, the wisdom of discriminating awareness, the all-accomplishing wisdom, all this within the purification of Vajrasattva. So this is how we approach this. And through the ripening of the 5 wisdoms, the maturization of the 5 wisdoms, the 5 original Buddha families arise. And through wisdom's further expansion, then the 42 peaceful Buddhas arise. And then with the upsurge of the 5-fold wisdom's power, the 60 blood-drinking Harukas appear. And thus the ground awareness, the Rigpa, has never known delusion. So that which cannot be perceived by the, or purified by the peaceful deities, the wisdom of the Haruka deities are very, very powerful and able to match the obstacles that are presented by the negativities of that which cannot be purified. Thus, this is my prayer of aspirations. May beings of samsara's 3 realms recognize self-originating awareness so that vast wisdom may be perfected. So this is being spoken of in the first person as being Samantabhadra. So continuously my emanations will appear in their many billions beyond imagining, manifest in varied ways according to need. So through this, all the beings of samsara escape their plight among the 6 classes of beings. The 6 classes being the Deva realm, the Azura realm, or the hungry goat, the Azura realm is the jealous god realm, the Titans, then the human realm, the animal realm, the Preta realm, which is the hungry ghost, and the hell realm, which is the hell beings. And then we come to delusion. So what we have, excuse me one second. Okay. So now we come to our delusion. We're faced with our delusion. So from the very first, since awareness does not dawn for deluded beings within the ground, they are entirely mindless and confused. So talking about ordinary beings. So here is the chaos. Here is out of anxiety and mental disquiet, and from notions of self and other, enmity, the hostility appears through the notions of the self and other, the separation of the dualistic nature. As this habitual tendency is thus reinforced, samsara unfolds in its regular progression. So this natural growth continues of confusion in this deluded state of mind. We have this deluded state of mind. Thus, mind's afflictions, the 5 poisons develop, and actions born of these 5 poisons never end. So through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all beings recognize their own awareness. So this is Samantabhadra recognizing that as this becomes manifest, as the absolute nature becomes manifest, it manifests in this dualistic myriad forms, and all this confusion comes about. But it's only overcome by the awareness of those beings to realize that's what's happening, and that the essence is the Samantabhadra, is the absolute nature. So he's saying, through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all beings recognize their own awareness. So then next comes the ignorance now, which is the basis of the delusion. So the unawareness that is co-emergent is a state of mindlessness distraction. The unawareness that designates a dualistic clinging to self and others. So our ignorance of not knowing that this is what happened, that this is what happened, that this is what is happening. So these two co-emergent and designating unawareness, the ignorance and the mindlessness, provide the basis for the delusion of all beings, provide the basis for the delusion of all beings, the ordinary beings. And through this now, my aspiration as a Buddha, may the dark and murky gloom of mindlessness among the sentient beings in samsara be dispelled. May their dualistic perceptions be purified, and may they recognize their very own awareness. So what this is Vajrasattva. So here we're arising as it says, my aspiration as a Buddha. Now we're talking about Vajrasattva, to purify that which we don't know, that our ignorance, to purify our ignorance so that we can open ourselves up to what is happening, to the truth, to reality and so on. So this is the first step, is the purification of being a human being, and our Buddha here is Vajrasattva. So this is Rigpa's own face, the clear light. So this is where we left off last time. So now we come to the next part where it starts as desire. So first part was ignorance. Now we're looking at desire. So it says a mind of dualistic clinging is one of doubt. From subtle attachment, once it has arisen. So this minute clinging that we do from subtle attachment, once it has arisen. So now we're in the midst of all this dualism and all these appearances and all this minute clinging that we do that is very, very subtle, that we don't recognize as clinging. But this is the stuff that's holding us back. So we need to recognize that. So habitual tendencies gradually gain strength. So we become dense in these imprints of this karma, of these things that we are doing. We have these causes, we take these actions. Now we have these imprints, and they develop as our habitual tendencies. We don't even recognize them as being suffering. We just think, oh, that's the way it is. That's the way I am. That's the way it is to be a human being on this planet. And we begin to accept it. And we're so deluded, we don't realize that we're in the midst of all this suffering that we've created for ourselves. So it goes on to say food, wealth, clothing, home and companions, the pleasures of the five senses or dear relations, whatever is attractive, brings the torment of desire. So all these things, having a family, having lovers, having possessions, having position, all these things are the substances that are holding us to the desire, that are the results of the desire. And it feeds back, it continually keeps going. All these attractive things. These are the delusions of the world. These are the confusions of the world. Actions based on dualistic clinging are unending. The grasping mind and the grasping of the objects of the mind. We see these, and they're unending in samsara. Samsara doesn't end. It keeps going and going and going. What we need to do is liberate ourselves from samsara. Samsara is going to continue. So when the fruits of attachment come to ripen, they bring birth as a preta, tormented by desire. So the preta is the hungry ghost, those insatiable, miserable beings in the preta realm, in the hungry ghost realm, fat, short hands, short legs, long neck, small mouth, can never be satisfied. So when the fruits of attachment come to ripen, they bring birth as a preta, tormented by desire. So that's what happens to us. How wretched are the pains of hunger and thirst. Now through my aspiration as a Buddha, may beings beset by craving and attachment neither cast aside the torment of desire nor pursue the craving of attachment. So it says, let me repeat that. Now, through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, this Buddha is Amitabha. Now we're talking about desire. So the desire is overcome and produces, and as it's overcome, the antidote is by meditation. And through meditation, through becoming objective, through allowing ourselves to rise above the obsession that we're having with this desire, with this lust, this passion, that we're able to see this. And this is how we develop the wisdom of discriminating awareness, that not to be obsessive about these things. So may beings beset by this craving and attachment neither cast aside the torment of desire, nor pursue the craving of attachment, but by allowing the mind to relax just as it is. In other words, we see these objects, but we're not attached to them. We don't have that craving. We're cutting it off, and we're not being subject to the results of that. We see it, but we're not attached to it. We have no aversion to it. And that's a huge point of awareness, of being able to recognize this. We're not annihilating desire or any of these poisons. We are cutting ourselves off from them, from the results of them. So it's a very important distinction to make. So neither cast aside the torment of desire, nor pursue the craving of attachment, but by allowing the mind to relax just as it is, may they capture the natural state of awareness, the rigpa, the clear light, and gain the wisdom of perfect discernment, which is Amitabha. So we need to look to Amitabha. So doing these so Samantabhadra is the absolute, is the Dharmakaya. But then as this Dharmakaya then kind of slows down and becomes the Sambhogakaya, and then we see these deities, we begin to see these lights, because that energy is slowing down and it coalesces, it kind of manifests as forms and so on. So the first one was Vajrasattva, the second one is Amitabha. So it's through the first one, Vajrasattva, that we purify the delusion, the ignorance, and it's through Amitabha that we purify and make decisions based on what it is that we need to understand, what we need to do through Amitabha. So doing the deity yoga here, you see, is very important because it helps us to recognize these subtleties in the Sambhogakaya, which then allows us to really understand the subtleties, the non-conceptualization of what the Samantabhadra is. So next we come to hatred. This next section is hatred or aggression or aversion. So now, as human beings are experiencing that, it says, through the subtle stirrings of anxiety and fear towards the appearance of external objects, habitual tendencies of aversion are reinforced, opening the way to enmity, which is hostility or conflict, injury and slaughter. When the fruits of aggression come to ripen, how harrowing will be the boilings and burnings of hell. So it's this hatred, it's this aggression that leads us directly to hell. When we take that kind of karmic action that robs people of their lives, that kills people, kills ourselves, that brings up this great hostility, this great enmity and so on. That all this stuff then, and no matter what good things we may have done, but one act of this aggression, one act of this hatred can just destroy all that good karma, all that merit that has been built up over many, many times can just be destroyed with that one act, and we are thrust right into our hell, into the hell realm, into our hell sense of mindfulness. Now, through this, did somebody want to say something?
I do want to say something.
Okay.
So knowing that hatred and anger is probably one of the most powerful, afflictive emotions. What is in, like you said, just like one instance of hatred can bring you down into the hell realms. What would be like the an immediate antidote, or something that a practitioner can do right away when he is conflicted with that?
Mindfulness.
Just being mindfulness of the hatred.
Well, mindfulness of the conditions, that,
Okay.
that cause the hatred. And then once you then become enraged, then the mindfulness to recognize that that's what's happening, and to help yourself to stop, to activate your loving kindness, the grace, to let go of what it is that you're becoming so having such great aversion to. It's very difficult to do. There's no question about it. It's probably the most difficult thing to do. But
Right.
that is the answer to that, is becoming mindful of the causes and conditions, and then the reality of that you were in that rage and being able to stop.
And the awareness is basically what's going to cut through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Did you realize, I don't know, have you ever been have you ever have a weapon, a gun or something like that? And you're faced with, we see it in movies, we see it in television where they dramatize this, but it's based on reality, where you see somebody who is basically a good person, but then has the choice to pick up this weapon and begin to point it at somebody, and they're going to take their life. But then they have this moment of lucidity where all of a sudden they realize what it is they're doing, and their hand is shaking, and then they throw the gun down or something like that. They come to that realization. They come to see what it is that they're doing. So that's an example of having that mindfulness, that awareness of what they're doing. What have I become? Or maybe they can see themselves in the mirror. You ever see yourself mad? It's a scary thing. Sometimes when I got a bad temper. I hate to say it, but it's true. I got a bad temper sometimes, and I've caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I am fucking ugly, man. It's terrible, and so it's through those kinds of realizations of seeing that you see yourself as Yama Dhamaraja, the Lord of Death, that you realize, wow, I'd rather be the Buddha.
Mm-hmm. Is it the same true with other emotions, kind of like being happy that Christmas is coming? A lot of people are happy because they're getting nice presents and all of that, and they'll be like, hey, this is nice, feels good. So can we call that attachment? I guess we could, to some certain extent.
Well, to what degree? It's all a matter of degree.
It's a matter of degree.
Yeah.
Right.
If you lose your mindfulness, then that's too much. But if you're able to enjoy those things without, losing your mindfulness, then that's fine. But if you become so obsessive about it, obsessive to go out and buy those things and go, to the Walmart at 6 o'clock in the morning when they open up the doors, and then you bust through and there's a stampede of people to get in and so on. I mean, that's craziness.
Hmm.
But some people, I mean, they look forward to it for all year till they can get to do that. And they build up, you know, they put their armor on that they're going to go in and they're going to do this. I'm going to bust some heads. I'm going to be the first one in there, you know. So not to have, you know, so that's protecting yourself against the causes, you know. So it's all those things, recognizing what you're doing and not being attached to them. The Buddha sees all the suffering. The Buddha sees all the causes of the suffering. The Buddha sees all the results of the suffering. But the Buddha is not attached to any of it, does not have any aversion to any of it. The Buddha is within ourselves. We are the Buddha. We need to be able to perfect ourselves to where we can see all this but not be affected by it.
Right. So just having good balance of and not
Unshakable
having,
balance.
right. And I guess like beyond all that, there are different degrees of attachment and aversion. And I'm thinking like at the 100 songs of Milarepa that Gary sent out this week on the app, and he was saying that, you know, just being so much into meditation, I gave away all my possessions. But then again, it becomes like a very like more and more subtle level of attachment, where it's like when you're closer to enlightenment, you're like detached to anything that is around you and disregard that, because your mind, I guess, is like what Dharmadhatu is in a pure place, right? Or
Well, forgive me if I don't have this right, but if we're trying to think that we are going to attain that in this particular life, doing the things that we are doing now in our particular lifestyle and so on, that's pretty remote. That's pretty unrealistic.
mm-hmm.
We may catch a glimpse of Dharmadhatu, no doubt about that. We'll catch glimpses of it, and we may be able to stabilize, you know, those glimpses through our meditation. That through our meditation we can hold that. But then when we come out of the meditation and we come back into our everyday life, now we can be shaken again. We can lose that mindfulness because mm-hmm. we're not that pure, because we still have these habitual tendencies of our attachments and our aversions and so on.
Right. I guess my question is more towards like ourselves as practitioners. How far do we go into like not having attachment to?
That's what I'm trying to say.
To, you know, objects, you know, around us, or money or possessions, right?
That's what I'm trying to say. You know, that if you go, say you go into a retreat, say you go away someplace for a week-long retreat or a 2-week retreat, you know, something that is doable, you know, in our lifestyle, and during that time, by the end of the week, you become pretty purified. You feel really good, and you feel really clean and clear, and everything is perfect and everything. But then as soon as you come home, things start piling up again. Things start happening, you know, and your habitual tendencies start coming up. The things that, you know, you temporarily were able to not have because you weren't put in those conditions when the threats were there, when the fear was there, when the confusion was there. You know, so these things still come up because they haven't been purified, you know. So that's when we say, when we go onto the path of being a bodhisattva, now We don't have a family. We haven't done that. We don't have a job. We haven't done that, or we've given it up. You know, we don't have possessions. We're just wearing a shawl and some white sheets, and that's it. Because we purified that much of our body, speech, and mind that we can do that. That's where you really stabilize in the Dharma Dhatu. To do it as an ordinary human being, you know, is very difficult. Now, there are people who will go through that process. Let's say they go through it in their 20s, okay? And they go through that purification and they reach that. They become enlightened. And then, but they're still living and they still got things to do. But now they are going through their life as a Buddha now, or as a Bodhisattva, where they're doing all these things, but they're not attached to these things. They don't have these things, but they had to have spent a considerable amount of time and energy, and their karma had to be ripe for it to be able to get to that level, to be able to do that. So maybe that's what you're, you know, looking for or hoping for.
So
It's not impossible, but it's very rare.
we're doomed as a lay person.
What's that?
I said, as a lay person, we're doomed to this.
Well,
Dealing
that I'm going to tell you, Adrian, that's a negative way of looking at all the potential that you have. That's the glass is half full, or half empty. I'm sorry, half empty. The glass half full is I got the rest of my life and all the lives in front of me to become a Buddha.
Right. Right. But as long as you have these distractions in your life, it's just going to be very difficult to, like you said, to stabilize those glimpses and to make it.
But you don't let that discourage you. You continue
Right.
on. And every day becomes a triumph.
Right.
So the hero here, or the Buddha here, is ascobia, with hatred. We haven't gotten to talking about it yet. Is ascobia, and ascobia is the steadfast one. You know, his right hand is touching the earth like Sakyamuni Buddha. So his right hand, the palm is down, and his right knee, and he's touching the earth. And he's saying, "Here I am," because he's stable. You know, and that's the thing that helps us through this hatred and through, you know, not to be rocked by the things that disturb us and so on, because they are steadfast in their Dharma practice and their awareness. So this is all why the deity yoga is so important, because it teaches us these things, how to become the Buddha. Right now, maybe it looks, you know, how do we do this? Well, we do it through the deity yoga. You know, doing it over and over again, doing these practices over and over again, and see how they transform ourselves. You know, it may be only temporary. Like I said, you go on a retreat for a week or something, or a weekend, or what, and for that time you feel it, and then you say, "Oh, okay, now I got to get back to that. When I lose it, I got to get back to it." Okay, so I'm on the bottom of page 9. We're talking about hatred. So we were talking about when the fruits of aggression come to ripen, how harrowing will be the burnings of hell. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, who this time is ascobia, may all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, all the beings of the 6 realms, whenever they are beset by intense aggression, neither reject nor indulge it, but relax therein. Capture the natural state of their own awareness, the rigpa, and gain the wisdom of lucid clarity, luminosity, ascobia. This is the wisdom of equanimity. No, excuse me. Excuse me, I'm wrong. The wisdom of mirror-like wisdom, the mirror-like wisdom is recognizing all things as appearances and like mirages. And why should we get upset with something that doesn't exist? It's all just an illusion. It's all temporary. It's impermanent. Why should we get upset with something that doesn't exist? It's only our ego that is creating that scenario for us to think that it's something worth getting upset about, that it's worth something getting angry about, that it's worth something to kill for. But it doesn't exist. So this is where emptiness really kicks in, this awareness of emptiness. And each one of these cases, in each one of these realms, with each one of these poisons, when we recognize the emptiness of each of these poisons and the emptiness of the objects of those poisons, why get upset? Why lose our balance? Why lose our Buddha nature? So, do we concentrate on cutting these things off? Or do we concentrate on being the Buddha? That's a really good question. Do we think about the things that we are, the sufferings that we have? Are we always anguishing over the sufferings? Or are we cultivating the virtues? And then the sufferings will fall away all by themselves. There's a parallel, you may think this is funny, but in salesmanship, in good salesmanship, when you are competing against somebody else, the successful salesman will not denigrate the opposition, will not talk bad about the other salesperson, will not talk bad about their products that they may have that are in competition with you. You may just say something, well, very quickly, well, they do this because of that or something. But the point is that you sell yourself. You sell what it is that are the virtues. You sell what the qualities of the product that you have. You sell the value of what it is that you're offering. You're selling the good stuff. You're not selling the bad stuff, or you're not selling because by way of the bad stuff. It's bad business to do that. It's negative salesmanship. And you see it in politics. That's what politics have become. That's why we hate politics so much, because it has become negative politics. The guy that I'm running against is way worse than I am. I got my faults, but you should vote for me because the other guy's worse. And that's really not good. And that's really not positive. So the point here is that we should be looking at our Buddha nature and cultivating our Buddha nature, and all the negativity, all the non-virtue, all the unwholesomeness will fall away by itself. Okay? So that's hatred that we just talked about. So we talked about ignorance, we talked about hatred. Now this next one is pridefulness. So I'm on page 10. It says, when the mind grows conceited, it brings thoughts of rivalry and disdain, and the arising of intense pride leads to the suffering of quarrels and disputes. When the fruits of such karma come to ripen, they bring birth as a deva, or the God realm, subject to passage and fall. And now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all sentient beings in whom conceit is born relax their minds there and then. So going back to the beginning now. So this pridefulness and greediness go together. So you can plug this in. When the mind grows conceited, when the mind grows greedy, it brings thoughts of rivalry and disdain. I've got more, I want to keep it, and I want yours. And may the arising of intense pride, the arising of intense greediness, leads to the suffering of quarrels and disputes. You know, I'm going to sue you. I want your money. I want everything you got, man. You got to liquidate everything. I don't care. You got to sell everything. I'm going to get it all. These are the suffering and quarrels and disputes when the fruits of such karma come to ripen. When that comes up, when your life becomes a prideful life, or your life becomes a greedy life, then they bring birth to you thinking that you are like a god, that you are above all the others, that you have this pridefulness, that you have this sense of great wealth, of power, of whatever it is that the gods might have, and that but they are subject to passage and fall. What means is all of a sudden they can just crash, and because that they have ignored the supplications, the beseeching of so many beings who look up to them and are praying to them to help in their suffering, that they have indirectly caused more and more suffering to these beings, that when they fall bang straight down to the hell realms, or to the misery realms, to the hungry ghost realm, to the lower realms, because of what they have chosen not to do by being so caught up in their own pleasures. So now, through my aspiration as a Buddha, may all sentient beings in whom conceit is born relax their minds there and then. So this is Ratnasambhava. This Buddha is Ratnasambhava. Ratna means jewel, the jewels that come from the earth, the jewel that is the earth. And Sambhava means born. So born as a jewel, the earth and the jewels that come with it and so on. So, and it's through this wisdom of equanimity now, that balance, that this inexhaustible supply of nutrition, of ability, of skillful means and so on, that one can relax and not have to, have this pridefulness, have this conceitedness, this greediness, and so on. That there's plenty for everybody. We don't need all this. We don't need to hoard like that. It's the natural way. If you look, it's only human beings that do that. Animals don't do that. There might be some examples, squirrels, they hide their peanuts and stuff like that, but at the same time, they're not killing other beings for the sake of it like human beings would. So that's pridefulness, that's greediness. So then the next one now is conflict and competition. Conflict and competition. So now it says habitual tendencies of intense dualistic clinging bring about the pain of self-flattery and contempt. And by inflaming conflict, dispute, and competition lead to birth in the Azura realm, the demigod realm, or the jealous god realm, the Titan realm of slaughter and mutilation. So this is where the wars are fought. This is where these conflicts are fought. This is, where people are really trying to steal and to thievery and rob and do whatever they can to get the wealth and the possessions and power from other beings. And even against the gods themselves, because they would like to be the gods, to be adored in the same way that the gods are. So they do battle against the gods, but mostly they're doing battle between themselves over the lower beings, the other ordinary beings, the human realm beings, to be able to capture, to manipulate them, to give the Titans everything that they want. So which in turn results in descent in the domains of hell. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may those in whom rivalry and antagonism take root not regard them as enemies, but relax there and then, capture the natural state of their own rigpa, their own awareness, and gain the wisdom of unimpeded activity. So unimpeded activity is Amagoga City. So Amagoga City is the all-accomplishing wisdom, the Buddha of all-accomplishing wisdom. So through that, there's no need to have this jealousy. There's no need to have this envy. There's no need to create this slaughter and mutilation, this conflict, disputes, and competitions that the lower beings who do not recognize their Buddha nature would enter into. If they just relax, they use their skills for positive, virtuous things, all these things will naturally come to them, but not any more than they really need. You know, if you try sometimes, you don't always get what you want, but you try sometimes, you get what you need. The great prophet said that. So this is conflict and competition, to overcome conflict and competition. So here again, this is Amagoga City. Is this making sense? Can you see this? You know, and okay. So then the last one now is animal ignorance. So this animal ignorance, it says mindlessness, indifference, distraction, dullness, drowsiness, oblivion, insensibility, laziness, and stupidity result in helpless animal wandering. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may the light of clear cognizance arise in those plunged into stupidity's gloom, and may they gain wisdom free of thought. So what this is Varanchana, the Buddha Varanchana, who is in the center, who all-pervading wisdom to allow us to see into the darkness, into the shadows, where there is mindlessness, indifference, distraction, dullness, drowsiness, oblivion, insensibility, laziness, and stupidity, and also enslavement. How enslaved are we with our jobs, with our families? How much have we given away our freedom to be a householder, to do these things and so on? You know, now that we've done them, you know, we can't just turn our backs on them, but we have to now skillfully be able to allow ourselves to loosen some of those bonds of that web that we have woven for ourselves, and be able to find ways to be able to develop, cultivate our spirituality, to develop these wisdoms and so on. And maybe we have the ability to be able to attain enlightenment in this lifetime, but it's going to come through great skillful means, despite what our entanglements are. You know, Milarepa was a murderer, and he was so tied up in that, and he had such great pridefulness about his powers, his arrogance, and so on. And he had to break that. You know, and Marpa, he needed the intervention of a great teacher like Marpa to help him to do that. But once he did, then he was able to attain enlightenment. So even someone who did those great crimes could attain enlightenment in a single lifetime. So for us who are householders and have these ordinary lives and everything, for us to be able to attain enlightenment, it would seem that it's much easier to do because we have less of a severity of our depth of confusion, but it can be. But that confusion could be more subtle, and we don't realize our habitual tendencies for those things, and we keep building those things over and over again. And if we don't accept the teacher, like Milarepa accepted Marpa, it becomes very difficult because we sink right back into our old habits very easily. And the teacher is there, with the objectivity to be able to be pointing out all the time the pith instructions, to be pointing out the errors, to be pointing out the confusions and so on. So we need to be able to open ourselves up to that.
Was it easier for Milarepa to go through the stages because he had his teacher to be there with him and give him those teachings directly?
Of course, I think so. I think it's obvious. I mean, he knew he needed a teacher, and he went through several teachers to get to Marpa. And even with Marpa, he argued with Marpa and rebelled against Marpa, and Marpa beat him, many times. So he went through, he really challenged Marpa. But finally, he reached the point where he was ready to kill himself, Milarepa. And it was at that point that Marpa realized he was broken and that he was now ready for the teachings. And then he brought him in and began to teach him. And then he taught him for several years, gave him all the teachings, all the empowerments and all this and everything. And then Milarepa went off by himself to Lapshi, to the caves, and then perfected those teachings. That's where he became enlightened, was in those caves. It wasn't while he was with Marpa. He just got all the stuff that he needed, and then he had to cultivate it all himself, bring it all together.
I think we just got it too soft. We have everything that we need. We have all the teachings, all the scriptures, the Dharma, the Zoom meetings, teachers. I think we just need a beating. Somebody needs to get a stick.
I agree with that.
Well,
That's what everybody is doing to each other now, is not working out too well.
No, I think
it's not that easy. I mean, because you got families, you got responsibilities. And if you turn your back on that, that's going to be a karma that is going to haunt you. That's not going to work. So you can't think of it in those terms like that.
got to practice patience in this life. So
Yeah,
see the circumstances that we have right now.
that's right. And then resolve, that in whatever next life is, that next life, maybe it'll be when you get to retire. Look at it that way. That when you get to be 60 years old or whenever it is that you retire, that now if you've got 20 or 30 or 40 years, I mean, you guys will live to be 100 years old. So what are you going to do for those years after you retire from your livelihood, from your making money and everything? That's when you can enter into your practice. There's no reason why you can't. And that's why guys like me, that's what I've done. I retired early. I retired when I was 62 because I wanted to have enough energy and enough resource to be able to devote myself to Dharma. I'm not holding myself up as any great lamp, but I'm just trying to say that that's what many, many people do, particularly in the East, would do. They would work. And then when it came to their retirement age, then they would go into the monastery and then they would do great work, their spiritual work. So look
I got a
for-
question, Lance. How do you square what you just said about starting the Dharma at 62 with the fact that you told me you were 59 the other day?
I was 59 while I was still working when I started doing Nundro practice. And I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do 400 prostrations that day.
Hey, Curtis, I think you have a good chance getting to 100 if you keep eating those croutons, man.
How do you know he's eating croutons? We can't see him.
Well, you gotta put down those croutons and you gotta start eating nettles.
Metals. Oh,
So if you don't get to retire, then you just hope you're smarter in the next birth, right?
Yeah, you create,
start hoarding.
you try and create the good karma, the merit, so that, when you pass, that you are ready for the poa, that you're ready for to go into the bardo and be able to become inseparable with the Buddhas of the bardo. And then if you still have work to do, that you are reborn willingly to come to help other beings, that you're not selfishly doing it for your own self-aggrandizement, that you're doing it to help other beings. And through that, you're purifying whatever negative karma you still have remaining to be able to become a Buddha in that life, or the life that comes after that, or the life that comes after that. So, there's so much we all have to learn more. Don't think that we've gotten there. We have a resource now. We have a treasury that we can make use of, but we still have to dig out each one of those jewels, and we have to polish it, and all those jewels within ourselves, and so on. And so we still have a lot to do. There's still a lot of practice to do. There's still a lot of deity to recognize, and there's still a lot of habitual tendency to overcome, mental misconceptions that we still hold. We're still at a level of being ignorant of the things that we don't even know that we're ignorant of.
it's difficult to do when you're working, especially in the atmosphere in this area, in the atmosphere of Washington, to focus on quiet and silence, because there is so much frenetic noise, and a lot of it is angry noise. And of course, we have that all over now. I tried. I would go sometimes to Lafayette Park, of all places, and meditate. You can do that, but it's not easy. And I had a friend years ago who was 80 and working hard. And I said, when are you going to retire? He said, never. He said, Gary, if I retire, I will sit home and listen to opera and read books for 8 months, and then I will die. And that's what he did. Exactly. I mean, almost to the day. And that to me is, I don't know if sad is the right word, but it doesn't have to be that way. But that's sort of the framework in which people live. We live in a very frenetic, angry framework, especially these days. What this practice has done for me, I think, and is doing for me, is helping me step back from all that, especially during this tempestuous time that we're in. But one of the things I noticed that I have done, and maybe others in the group have done, is I've stepped back from a lot of people. Not that I've abandoned them. It's not that I've rejected them. It's I can't listen to what they say and what they think, but I don't want to prove anything to them, and I can't do anything for them. I see them caught up in something that I wanted to get out of these rapids. I wanted to get out of it. In my life, I've been in.
Well, I understand, and you're right. And don't dwell in the past. Don't dwell in that negativity. Just get out there and take your clothes off and enjoy the sun. So you've made great changes. I mean, these past 6 months, we've seen you change tremendously. Your awareness has just blossomed tremendously, and it's really great. So enjoy that. And be able to manage your thoughts now that you cut yourself off from the past. You cut yourself off from those negative things, because it's those things when you are talking about things like that and doing like that, you're strengthening those things. You don't think that you are, but that's the habitual tendency that we have to do that thing. And talking is an activity, just as if I was out taking a knife and chopping things. The talk can do bad things for you. You strengthen that. So that's why, shut thy mouth, because we give ourselves away. What we're talking about is giving ourselves away. So we have to allow ourselves to have the serenity, to allow ourselves to have the bliss, allow ourselves to, how does he say it here? Excuse me 1 second while I look at this. May they gain wisdom free from thought. Relax their minds there and then. May all sentient beings in whom conceit is born relax their minds there and then. The Buddha has no thought. There's nothing to say. Now, the Buddha may respond if interrupted from no thought and speak of wisdom or characterize wisdom, but as soon as that is satisfied, it's back to no thought. So we contaminate ourselves if we let ourselves. So that's one of the lessons, is being able to learn to cut ourselves off from that chatter. It's the chatter in here that's worse than the chatter out there. It's the chatter in here that's responding to that, but we can stop this. We don't have any power to stop that. We can stop this chatter. That's what we need to do. So that's the next step. You see, that's how you go from one level to the next. Purifying that which we're conceited about, that which we think, oh, I've got this sussed out. Well, not until it's gone is it really become something that is achieved. What we are achieving is letting go. That's what the accomplishments are. That's what that's what siddhi means. SIDDHI. Siddhi are the accomplishments of letting go, cutting off, freedom.
Every time we have our groups, we start with a prayer, our altruistic motivation. Read that. Comprehend that. That is, all the answers are right there. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate, obstructors who harm, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddha. Oh, those are precious words. Words to live by every day.
Amen. Hallelujah. Yeah.
I had someone ask me recently, no, recently, it's maybe a month. Particular subject doesn't, but they asked me, why aren't you angry? I said, well, I'm not angry. Well, don't you care? Yeah, I care. Aren't you outraged? I mean, these were words, and there was a time not so long ago, all too recently, where I would have been perfectly willing to share their outrage. And I understand what they're talking about. But I can't do that anymore. And I don't want to. But
Well, I'll tell you
people
something.
who are friends, lots of people who are dear to me, you lose, if lose is the right word, some sense of connection when you don't share someone's rage. There's a connection that is broken.
That's right.
Not always a bad thing, but that's the way it is with this practice. When you embrace it, when something punches through, at least that's, I can't speak for everyone here or everyone anywhere, but for me, when something breaks through, it's sort of like, why haven't I understood that before? All the many things I've done. It's so much easier this way. Easier is probably not the right choice of words, but it's more, certainly more peaceful.
And you have to protect that and to be challenged with that. Things will come up, maybe there'll be a period of time when you get lazy or something like that. And that's why Dharma practice has to be done all the time. Don't take it for granted. In the Eightfold Path, the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, we have the right view, freedom. Okay, so now we've got this view, enlightenment. We've got this view of freedom. And the next one is resolve, to have the right resolve. And that resolve is your protection. So it's like an umbrella that is protecting you from things falling on your head. And that resolve, that protection is your practice, is your Dharma practice. Don't take it for granted. Because it slips away. Our habitual tendencies come back up and bite us because we're not perfected. We're working on it. We want to be, but still, we have to be ever vigilant. Okay, so Varanchana, where we left off here on page 12, was talking about, this animal ignorance, this enslavement, where there's no protection, you say, there's no protection. But through Varanchana, through now the Buddha Varanchana, the Sambhogagaya Buddha Varanchana, there is clear recollection. Clear recollection. There is the all-pervading wisdom. Everything, there's no more shadows. We see there's no more darkness. Everything is seen. Everything is realized. It's a non-conceptual wisdom. Our thoughts are pure. They're just heart thoughts of love. So knowing these 5 Buddhas, Varanchana, and I'm trying to think, have we talked about these things? Have we had a discussion about this? No, it hasn't been recent, but maybe that's something we should be talking about soon. Is the 5 Buddha families? I was thinking about that and talking about the Bodhisattvas, the 8 Bodhisattvas. Have we talked about that recently? Tom, Michael?
Not recently, no.
I think
No,
it would
and
be,
I'd love for you to go really in depth into it as well. I think we need that.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to reinforce the the sorts of anecdotes that are represented by the families, that it's sort of reflected in this prayer, that, you know, I never saw how each one of these can show up, and their emanation works to cut through a certain kind of poison, a certain kind of experience. So I think it would be worthwhile touching again on
I
that
think
spiral.
what we'll do is in 101, we're going to dig in at 101 at the fundamental level, and we'll be talking about it at the fundamental level. But I think in Buddhism 102 that we do on Saturday nights, then we'll dig into to the five Buddha families when we finish the Jewel Ornamental Liberation, which won't be too long, but we'll dig into that, and because I think we're ready for that. And then Friday nights, like here, we're going to do the Nundro, because this is a practice night. So we're trying to do things. We're trying to do academics, and we're trying to do practice. You know, all within a week. We've got 2 practices, and we've got 2 academics.
I think this prayer should be read every time we do any of those. This really puts everything in perspective. It really does. It really does.
Okay, so then let's go to the next section here on page 13, where it says, all sentient beings throughout the 3 realms are equal to me. All sentient beings throughout the 3 realms are equal to me, the Buddha, in the ground of all. Yet for them, it is but a base of mindless delusion. What does this mean? This is a very, very profound point here. All sentient beings, so all those are phenomenal, those that we can see, those that we can't see, are equal to me, that all beings are the same, and I am the Buddha, and they are the Buddha. I mean, this is a fundamental thing. This is the altruistic, realization. It's not the motivation. Now it's a realization that we're all Buddha. We're all part of the same thing, that which we call Buddha. And there's none better or worse. There's those that are better practitioners and those that are better in union with that, those that are better yogis than that. There's no question about that, but we all have that same essence. In the ground of all. The ground of all, when they say ground of all, this means the alaya consciousness. The alaya consciousness is spelled A-L-A-Y-A. I know we've talked about this fairly recently, came up in something we were talking about. And this alaya is the source of confusion. This is eternalism, the alaya. This is the idea of the soul. This is this notion that there is this being that lives forever, that we are part of this being that lives forever. And that is an attachment. That is a desire. That is something that we hold on to that will be resolved, that is our salvation. And it removes us of responsibility for what it is that we need to do now, which is to liberate ourselves from even the soul, even this eternalism. This is, the alaya is the storehouse consciousness of our karma. Our goal is no karma. No positive karma, no negative karma. Negative karma creates suffering. Positive karma creates suffering. For a time we can enjoy it. It seems very nice, but it always changes. And then when it changes, there's suffering. So the best thing is no karma at all. Karma is a mental construct in this human life form. So as long as we hold on to this human life form and all of its constructs, we're just, it's like an anchor, just holding us down into the ocean of suffering. So it's through the middle way between nihilism and eternalism that there is this ability to be able to transcend. And on the other axis is the individualism and the materialism. The four extreme views. Yet for them, it is but a base of mindless delusion. You see, it says here, so this alaya ground of all is a base of endless delusion, the endless delusion of the soul. And now they engage in meaningless pursuits with sixfold karma as if deceived by a dream. So the sixfold karma are the six realms: the God realm, the jealous God realm, the human realm, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, the hell realm. Yet I am the primordial Buddha. Primordial means not even born. So not born into this dualistic nature. Guide to the six classes through my emanations. So the six classes are these Buddhas, and the emanations, you could say, are the six Buddhas that are in the Sambhogagaya, that are leading, that are the perfections of the human beings. So in the human realm, there is Vajrasattva. In the Preta realm, there is Amitabha. In the hell realm, there is Ascobia. In the God realm, there is Ratnasambhava. And in the Azura realm, there is Amagog City. And in the animal realm, there is Varanchana. So that's what we just went through tonight, talking about these Buddhas. So it says, guide to the six classes through my emanations. Speaking as Samantabhadra, the primordial Buddha, now my emanations, here's these clear light emanations that when they slow down, they now become light. They become white light, they become red light, blue light, green light, yellow light. And then we can see them. And then we give them anthropomorphic representations of what they appear to be. They look like us, but they have these different colored bodies, and they represent these different activities of the primordial Buddha, that we are all within ourselves. And through this Samantabhadra's prayer of aspiration, may all sentient beings, without exception, awaken within the Dharma Dhatu, the absolute sphere, the Dharma sphere, the Dharma Dhatu. May we recognize what we are, who we are, what it is, It's beyond our comprehension, or it's beyond our be able to express it, but it is within our ability to experience it. So you say, well, I don't believe that because I haven't experienced it yet, or I want to experience it. How do I do it? Well, what we're doing now is being able to put all the elements together so that you can experience it, and it's experienced through the practices. So for instance, you can recite this prayer over and over again, do 100,000 recitations of this mantra, and you'll be much closer to experiencing it, because you will have created a mindfulness that cuts through all your dualistic nature. And if not this practice, any other practice, green tar practice, Shenrezig practice, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Ah Hum, whatever you wanted to do for 1,000,000 times, whatever it takes to cut through.
How about the 100 syllables mantra?
100 syllables for sure. That's fine. Go to 1,000,000 times. Anything that helps you to, it's a mindfulness. Remember, a mantra is a protection of the mind, a mind protection. It protects this little mind and helps us to open up the big mind. So any of them can work. But from a practical point of view, and being the people that we are, it's very difficult to commit to doing one thing like that all the time and getting the results that we want. Our mind starts wandering, things start happening. So we have these different practices to help us when our mind wanders into these different directions, to help bring us back, to help neutralize those wanderings and so on. So that's why one of the blessings we have is this Vajrayana practice, to be able to do that. But the actuality is any one of these things will work. But it's just being able to have the commitment to be able to allow it to work. So then now on page 14, it says, henceforth, whenever a powerful yogi with naturally clear, undiluted awareness recites this powerful aspiration, all sentient beings who hear it will awaken within the course of 3 lives. So it's saying that we as a yogi, as a powerful yogi, if we can cultivate that and we reach that state with undiluted awareness and this powerful aspiration, that not only will we be liberated in 3 lifetimes, but those who hear it can be liberated in 3 lifetimes because they will hear it and they will be inspired to pick up the practice. Not just because they hear it, is that going to have some magical power that is now going to lift them up and they're going to be enlightened. No, it will inspire them to take up the practices, to take up the teachings so that they can liberate themselves. That's what it means. So then next it says, when Rahu seizes the sun or moon, so Rahu is the Buddha's sun. So Rahu is just an epithet for all of us. We are all the son and daughters of the Buddha, who seizes the sun or moon. The solar or lunar eclipses is what this means. But what it means is all the natural phenomena, who seizes the power of all this natural phenomena. Whenever the earth rumbles or quakes at the solstices or closes of the year, visualize yourself as Samantabhadra. When there's great power, when there's great calamity that's going on, there's great power. Seize that power, bring it in. That's the best time to do practice. And chant this aloud so that all may hear. Then all the beings of the 3 realms will, through the yogi's prayer of aspiration, gradually, progressively, by degree, be freed from their suffering and ultimately awaken as a Buddha. So this is the prayer of Kuntuzangpo. This is the prayer of liberation, the prayer of the primordial Buddha. It's stating our situation. It's giving us instruction how to liberate ourselves from our situation. And then it's giving us encouragement as to take up that practice, to do this. So there you are. So what do you think of magic bullets? You can think of this as a magic bullet. You know, it may take 3 lifetimes, but how many lifetimes have we had, and how many more lifetimes could we have? How many lifetimes are there right now? You know, and what is our mental misconception about what those lifetimes are, what that means? How do we attach to that? Because that seems so insurmountable to us, we say, oh, I can't do that. It's impossible. Why can't I do it now? If we look at it that, oh, my next lifetime, I aspire to be a bodhisattva. Now I can come and everything I do is to help other beings. What better purpose in life could there be? So as Kempo Samdup was talking about last week, that Shantideva said in his in the ways of the Bodhisattva, he said, don't let the old self pull the new self down. Right? Is that a good paraphrase?
It is.
That's why we have to practice all the time. Practice, practice, practice.
And what about, contemporary things? What about the Grateful Dead? Where do you think they got that title from? Where do you think that represents?
About what?
The Grateful Dead.
I know the story.
Huh?
I know the story, Lance, if you don't.
All right, well, what's the story?
Well, first of all, they stumbled upon it in a dictionary, I believe, or a book, the term, and it immediately struck them. But it goes back to a medieval reference, and it is a situation where, and you can look it up and read more about it. I'm just pulling this out of memory real quick, but it's when somebody has died and there haven't been, for example, any sort of recognition or ceremony for them, and somebody comes across such a person or hears of such a person, and then provides them those comforting rituals, hence the term, the Grateful Dead.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, it's quite a story. It's beautiful. I wish I could read the poetry of what I read, but it's anyway, from medieval Christian Europe.
I got it. So to me, it means I'm grateful that the old Lance is dead.
Ah.
I'm very happy, and I'm smiling.
But I like the old Lance too.
Well, you didn't know me before.
I mean, it's a gradual path, right?
Of course, yes.
So
every day is a rebirth and a death.
right.
Every meditation is a rebirth and a death. And that we become happier and happier in the process. And if you listen to their songs, I mean, I got to tell you, I wasn't a huge Grateful Dead fan, but, the Hunter songs that I did listen to and so on and read the lyrics, I mean, they were far out. It was talking about liberation. It's talking about letting go. It's talking about Buddhist concepts. They may not, they're not saying those words, they're not using it in that context, they're using it in a contemporary way. And that's beautiful. You know, one of the things that gave me permission to really and get engaged in Buddhism was the idea of the Buddha Maitreya, the future Buddha, which to me meant that it is an evolution. It's not stuck in what happened 2,600 years ago, you know, but it uses what happened 2,600 years ago, and then it evolves with civilization, and evolves with human beings, with the sophistication of human beings and so on. And that we are all Buddha. We are all the future Buddha, you know, and that to me was just magnificent. Anybody else have a story like that? You know, okay. Who were your favorite bands of the 60s and 70s?
Are you sure you weren't on the bus?
No, but the music at that time,
Young.
that was, you know, I've talked about The White Hole in Time, you know, the book, The White Hole in Time. I told you about Peter Russell, and that was a white hole in time, that whole period of time. And it was consciousness raising, you know, it was a time of enlightenment, and it was in the music, it was in the literature, it was in the behavior of politicians, you know, human rights came about, civil rights, you know, was worked on, you know, women's lib came about, you know, many, many things happened. So it's in the music. And if you listen to the music, if you read some of the books of the time and everything, you'll see, you'll recognize what I'm talking about.
Jerry.
Very
Man.
positive.
Timing of women's lib was bad for you and I, Lance, as if that matters, because just as we had been finished in the race, we'd just hit our 20s in the old paradigm, and they came up with this new damn thing. And when I came back from overseas, things were rotating, and there was a totally different way to behave. And you have to hit the reset button in a big way.
Yeah. But now imagine that white hole in time is coming round again in 2050, 2060. So I'm not likely to be here. You know, a couple of you guys are likely to be because you're much younger, you know, but what's that going to be? How are we going to guide that? How are we making that happen? In the same way that the people from the 40s and the 50s and the 30s, 1930s, all those years before were setting the stage for what happened in the 1960s. The writers, the artists, the free thinkers, and so on, were setting the stage that became, you know, the inspirations for the people of the 60s. Well, we're doing that now for our children and grandchildren that are going to be enjoying the 2050s and 2060s and so on. So I think this philosophy is got to be a huge part of it.
Why are you saying that it's going to be in the 2050s? It's like a 100-year cycle or something like that?
Yeah, the book, The White Hole in Time, really explains that. And there's other books that talk about things like this, the cycles of time and so on. And yeah, so they say in the book, it's 90 to 110 years, you know, so what we're experiencing now are just ripples in the pond, so to speak. You know, things are coming around again. You know, the psychedelics are becoming freed up. You know, that's becoming realized again. And, you know, Buddhism and New Agey stuff, you know, it's all good stuff. You know, it's virtuous stuff. There's lots of people that are egotistical about it. There's no question about that. But the core of it, the essence of it, is really just Buddhist philosophy, which is the same as Christian philosophy, which is the same as Hebrew philosophy or Islamic philosophy or any spiritual philosophy. So yeah, so your kids, Adrian, you know, are going to be in the midst of that. You know, and how are we helping them to recognize it, to be able to ride the wave?
Be in the tube.
Be in the tube, yeah, man. Yeah, man. All right. Anybody got any thoughts or comments, questions? Everybody good? So this was a good practice. You want to? We'll start reading this regularly. How's that? Okay. That was your wish, so we'll make it come true. So read this. I don't know if anybody took any notes, but that's how I remember this stuff is I take notes and it gradually becomes my habitual tendencies, you see. If I rely on my memory, it's not that good, but I work at it. Just a little tweak, you know. All right, let's do our dedications. We'll do page 20 and 21 and 22. The Kurma prayer. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Sri Khompa, Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. May all sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, ah, hom. Om, ah, hom. Om, ah, hom. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Okay, thank you all.